we need to be more sophisticated as we look at data across the nation in law enforcement. Data's changed everything that we've done in the world except government, and it needs to change the way we do government. So what I want to talk to you about today is a couple of things that I have said since I've been here. It's been a little bit controversial, but I'm going to show you why I've said this and where the data proves that our methodology is correct. And that's the first thing is I arrived in 2012. And everyone in the city was very happy that the homicide rate was under 100. It's a good number to be under 100 for a city. But I said, as a new director of public safety, I was concerned about violence in the city. I was concerned about precursors I was seeing for homicides. And that caused some elected officials, quite frankly, to be upset with me. But the reason I said that is the only difference between a homicide and a non-fatal shooting is where the bullet lands. So if someone walks into this room and shoots me in the arm, they're most likely only going to spend a year or two in jail somewhere in the state of Indiana, probably less than 5 years. If someone walks in and shoots me and kills me, it's a capital offense. But let me ask you this, wasn't the intent always the same? We need to treat it the same. So when I look at violence, I look at shootings, period. I don't differentiate between non-fatal and fatal because someone made that a life and death situation. That becomes important in a moment. 96 homicides in 2012. That number jumped to 127 in 2013. Unfortunately, what we thought we were seeing in the numbers when I arrived here ended up being correct. That number jumped again in 2014 to 138 citizens lost their lives in this city. And I heard reports that that's the most homicides we'd ever had, and I heard reports that we had more gun violence than we ever had in the city. Both of those statements were incorrect, quite frankly. But 138 people died, and we have to be concerned about that as a city, and we were. And we're working very hard. We're trying to figure out how to put more police officers on the street. So we increased that number from 39% of all police officers in patrol to more like 50% now. We looked at data to do that. But then we looked at data, and we realized that out of the 96 homicides, police officers responded to 93 incidents of homicides, meaning there were 93 incidents where 96 people died. So most incidents, only one person died. The next year, that number was pretty similar, 122 incidents, and 127 people died. The year following that, 122 incidents again, but yet 138 people died. So we started trying to figure out, since the deaths per incident are increasing, and homicides have increased, what's going on? Because the natural inclination is to say, we have more people shooting people in the city, so more people are dying. But we want to be more sophisticated. Why are people dying in the city? So we started looking at criminal histories. In 2012, 70% of all suspects in homicides had a criminal past. 73% of the victims had a criminal past. Look at how that number has jumped from 2012 to 2015. We are 94% this year. I didn't think it could get higher than it was last year, and I was wrong. 94%, meaning when somebody says we need to hire 500 more officers to deal with the homicide rate, I would submit to you that your police department's doing a pretty good job of locking up the right people, only to have them put back on the streets. That's why mandatory minimum sentencing is something we're pushing for, because we know data tells us that if we had mandatory minimum sentencing of just 5 years, last year the homicide rate could have dropped by upwards of 25%. If we had a mandatory minimum sentencing of just 10 years, it could have dropped by almost a third. So that's why we're turning to our federal partners to prosecute people federally so they go away longer. Now, when I say that, we also have to be equally committed to getting reentry services, because there's no magic trap door. People are coming back to our society to the number of 6,000 to 8,000 a year to Marion County, a third of which have not lived here before. So it's just a little bit of background for you. But what makes this even more interesting, now we know that these individuals are criminals, they know how the system works, and they are killing witnesses per incident. That's why we've had a quadruple homicide. That's why we had 5 people shot not too long ago. That's why more women are dying in homicides. That's why younger people are dying in homicides, because they're trying to kill witnesses because they know how the system operates. With that said, this is what will surprise you. This is gun violence in the city. Take the homicide numbers out. Murders plus non-fatal shootings. Can you see why I was worried in 2012 when I arrived? When the media said that these are the most violent gun violence years in the city, that's just simply not true. Simply not true. The rise in homicides was because of the rise in the people getting out of prison that had criminal past and violent criminal past. About all those that have criminal past, about 50% have past gun charges. Past gun charges. Gun violence has actually been lower the last 2 years when we had a higher homicide rate than it was when we were below 100. That's why I say we have to be more sophisticated in how we attack these issues. We are attacking these issues. We're working hard. The good news is the shootings are trending down this year as compared to this time last year. Also, with the help of using federal partners to arrest individuals and going after the top level type violent offenders and monitoring them through the police department by using data the last couple of years and by using our federal partners, we have seen a 35% decrease in homicides this year. It has fluctuated between 35 and 45% the entire year. If you throw in December of last year, 39%, by the end of this month, that number could be over 40%. So that's where we are here. Here are the other crime numbers for the city of Indianapolis. So we have to be more sophisticated understanding. Here's what's happening in Indianapolis, and this is going to become apparent on April the 28th, and you're certainly invited at our Regional Operations Center. We're going to talk about our 6 areas. We have roughly 400 square miles in the city of Indianapolis. For 392 square miles, things are getting a lot better. For 6 square miles, they aren't. They're getting worse. Or for 8 square miles, they're getting worse in those 6 areas. We have to be focused on those systemic issues if we want to see these numbers continue to go down. I give you these numbers today not to celebrate the fact that homicides are down dramatically and they look like they may finish the year dramatically. I give you the number to tell you simply this, which some people find unusual. Do not let the conversation leave talking about violent crime. These numbers will go back up, and they'll go back up in a hurry if we don't deal with the systemic issues, the 30% that live in poverty, the thousands that have mental illness in our community. We're locking up 30 to 40% mental illness, the lack of education, lack of jobs, lack of these things. We have to deal with that, or these numbers will not stay lower forever. Thank you so much for having me.